I'm Kiera Morgan. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Coffee with Kiera. It is sponsored by The Human Being in Newport and Lincoln City. And I am here today at Stern Castle Publishing with Savanah Gardiner, who recently wrote the book Could Have Been. And we're going to learn about this fantastic book and a little bit about Savanah. Hi.
Hello.
Thanks so much for joining us on this episode today. I'm always excited to talk with new authors. I'm an avid book reader, love it, and love to share, especially local authors. So first of all, tell us a little bit about the book, your inspiration, and what it's all about.
Yeah, so the book it centers around Liv, who is a 30-something-year-old mom, and she returns back to her Oregon hometown after going out into the world, achieving everything she wanted to achieve, and then kind of coming back with her tail between her legs. And shortly after she gets back to her hometown, before she's really even had the chance to kind of unpack, she runs into her ex-best friend, Jake. And they haven't spoken in 15 years since an explosive falling out. And they meet over coffee. And as they
are human being,
they run into each other at a coffee shop. And when he touches her hand in just kind of a moment, they are both sort of swirled away into an entire world of what their life would have been had they not broken up as friends. And eventually he gets out of the friend zone and they end up together and married and with a family. And they see this entire life that they would have had they not broken up as best friends as teenagers. And so then they get back into the real world and she goes, oh my God, what was that? And he kind of has this moment where he looks at her and he goes, you saw that too.
Ooh.
And so he's done this before. He's seen this before. She is not. And so then they kind of have to reconcile what their life could have been versus what their life actually is. And sort of deal with the ramifications of we've all seen this now and we know what could have happened and that's not what happened and that's not where our lives are.
That's amazing. How did you come up with this story?
Okay, it's a silly story. I was driving my kids to school and I had this thought of, oh my gosh, what would my life have been if I'd ended up with this one boy?
Okay.
And I went,
we have all had that thought of that childhood boyfriend that asks us to marry him right out of high school. Yeah, we've all had that.
I married my high school sweetheart, but this isn't him.
Okay.
This was another boy. And my next thought was, I'd be living in his mom's basement. And I went, that's a terrible turn of events. That's definitely not where my life should have gone. My life went exactly where it should have been. But it kind of started that whole, well, what if someone saw what their life could have been and it was with someone where it should have been different? And so I actually called my husband on my way home from dropping off the kids. And I said, I got it. I have the idea. I'm going home to write.
Yay.
And I started writing. And then a month later, the world shut down for COVID. And I was suddenly homeschooling 4 kids while trying to write.
That sounds like a perfect opportunity. You do your work. I'm doing mine. I say that almost every day. So Savanah, women's fiction often explores themes of identity and growth. Let's talk a little bit about what drew you to this genre.
Yeah, I think as women, a lot of our conversations with our girlfriends revolve around growth and emotions and what's going well and what's not going well and what could go better. And am I totally screwing up myself or my kids or my relationship? And sometimes they tell you yes. And when they do tell you yes, it's an opportunity for you to grow. Or sometimes you call them and you say, I'm messing up in all of these ways. And my best friend is great. She always says, do you want me to listen or do you want me to give advice? And that's some growth. I don't have that yet. I jump right in with the advice. But she's great about telling me what I'm doing wrong and where I have opportunities to sort of shift my way of thinking. And so I think women's fiction is in a greater, larger spectrum. It's if you don't have the best friend who's going to put you in your place, you read a book and you go, oh, this person is messy like me, or this person grew in this way, and I could see how me or someone else should kind of grow. And I feel like it's one of the most relatable dramas because we don't always know someone getting murdered to solve a mystery, but we all know people or ourselves who should grow or kind of get more in touch with their emotions.
I love that. Do you think now, of course, it is women's fiction per se, but is it something that you think men would enjoy reading also?
I think so. I think the themes and the conversations are relatable, where we've all had those conversations where we're having an explosive fight over something that's not actually what we're fighting about. There's so many deeper threads that go, and we all, it's very relatable. And we all kind of have those friendships where we've had friendships that break up that maybe shouldn't have broken up, and kind of figuring out how you can sort of repair those relationships, and how they don't get repaired just by ignoring the problems that were there to begin with. And you have to kind of go back and do the work.
Is this the first book that you've written?
Yes. So I did write a short story that was published last year with Stern Castle. But this is my first full-length novel.
So did you draw inspiration, you kind of mentioned this a little bit, from personal experience to get this book started?
I think so. I mean, just that one little thought, and then I'm not a visual person. When I close my eyes, I cannot imagine anything. It's all completely black.
My daughter is the exact same
It's weird,
way.
right?
I have such a hard time with it because she's like, you can close your eyes and you can picture an apple. And I went, yeah. And she's like, I can't. I'm going,
Black.
no. That's impossible. It is so odd.
It's weird on the other side of the spectrum, where when people were meditating, I thought, like, imagine you're in a forest and someone's walking towards you. I thought it was all BS. I didn't think anyone was actually seeing anything. And so when I kind of had this fleeting idea in this moment, I called my husband and said, I have the idea. I've got it. It wasn't that I could visualize anything. It's that I can hear. So I have like full conversations with like characters in my head. And I've got a note on my phone that has paragraphs written by totally different characters where I'm like, I have no idea who this person is, but that was a very messy thought and that can't be mine. So whether it is mine and I'm just totally dissociating from it, we're going to just go ahead and call them a character and we're going to use them later. And so I think kind of meshing those characters and then all the messy people I have in my life. Everyone has messy people. And so kind of putting them all together and making a full-fledged person.
That's kind of cool. It's really, that's what I enjoy about reading is kind of creating the characters and visualizing them in my mind and having the book kind of create some of the personality of those characters. And sometimes when I'm reading a book, I get like almost done and I almost don't want to finish it if it's really good, because then it'll be over. The story's done. I know.
I love a story that breaks my heart though. And so if I get to that point where it's like, I'm not ready for it to be over, I chase that. That's the high I chase, is I want some sort of story that's going to make me feel like I'm being broken up with at the end. Like, this is it. You don't get any more.
Oh. So what do you hope that readers can gain from reading your book?
I think Liv is not the most likable character. She's incredibly messy and she does grow at the end, but it's one of those, is it too little too late? Did she kind of learn from her mistakes? And so I think it's one of those books where when you read it, you can see yourself. You can see yourself in the mess, maybe not in the shiny, happy parts, but a little bit in the mess where you go, okay, I can.
So you can associate with these characters.
Yeah, they may not be likable, but I'm not likable to everybody. And I like a lot of people, but sometimes I don't like them. And I think that we can all kind of see ourselves in those unlikable moments and maybe take a moment and grow from that, or realize that communication is really everything.
So let's talk about your favorite authors. And did you get inspired by some of the authors that you enjoy to help you create the book? Could have been?
Yeah. So one of my very favorites is Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love everything she writes. I feel like she does a really good job of kind of weaving a tale that's not clean cut, and you don't exactly know where it's going to go. And she kind of does explore those parallel universe or different choices. And so I do get a lot of inspiration from her. When I need something fluffy and happy, Emily Henry is where I go. I really enjoy Emily Henry, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks, especially when I'm working.
Now, could have been an audiobook?
It is not currently.
Oh, okay.
But Emily Henry is the one where I go to when I need something like, when the world feels like it's burning and heavy, that's where I go. And then Audrey Niffenegger's The Time Traveler's Wife is my very favorite book. I go back maybe once a decade and reread that one because I love everything about it. I didn't love the movie or the series, but I love the book.
So you're talking about movies and series. If your book were made into a film or a series, who do you envision playing some of these main characters, and why do you think that would be?
I think for Liv, you would have to have someone who can both be funny, but also be deep and be vulnerable, but not give too much away, and also kind of embrace, I know I keep going back to the word, but the messiness. So I think Anna Kendrick or Jennifer Lawrence are both really good at being vulnerable and messy, but also have hilarious sides to them. And then I think for Jake, he was in that new Twister movie, Glenn Powell.
Yeah. Just watched that the other night.
Yeah, he's got that unassuming hometown handsomeness where he didn't grow up hot, and so maybe he doesn't know how hot he is. You know, that sort of person.
So that would be exciting. Do you think that that's something that could be easily adapted the way that it's written?
I think it could definitely be adapted. Yeah, absolutely. It's very, like I said, I can't visualize, so it is very conversation heavy, where it's very realistic conversations, and there's a lot of kind of talking that does happen, and I think that really bodes well to kind of a screenplay adaptation.
Do you give a lot of character descriptions? Do you really go in depth? And I know that's a personal choice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm a big Stephen King lover. My daughter-in-law is like, oh my gosh, he just spends 5 pages describing a flower and what the person was wearing.
She can't visualize it though. I'm the same way.
And I said, I know. I said, but I like that because I like having that full picture.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm going to paint my own picture, and it may not be what it's meant to be. Does that make sense?
It does, but I think that's the beauty of having aphantasia, is what it's called, where you can't visualize. I've never been able to visualize a book, and so I love the book Atonement. And that is a book where I specifically remember being like, there is 3 paragraphs on the color of the grass. Mm-hmm. And I am the kind, like, my ADHD and my aphantasia, I can't do it. And so those are like the paragraphs that I tend to skip because it does nothing for me. I do describe, I don't go super in detail about how a person looks or the exact details. It's more, I feel like it's described on like the vibes, how someone makes you feel,
okay,
more than exactly how they look, how a room makes you feel more than the exact layout of where the furniture is. How the forest the colors of the forest, the sort of mood and the vibe that it gives, rather than this tree was 17 feet tall. And so there is descriptions in there, but it is very heavy on how does this setting make you feel? How does this person make you feel? Mm-hmm. And there's enough description where people can visualize to the point where I'm ready for them to go. And then I sort of like that jumping off point. I've never been disappointed in a casting of a movie because I have no
prejudgment. Okay.
I don't care who's cast in a movie. And so for me and other people who have aphantasia and can't visualize, it's the kind of story that I like to hear, where I don't need all of everything kind of laid out exactly for me. It doesn't have to be clean with a bow.
So what advice would you give to other authors, particularly women authors?
Make a playlist. Make a playlist. I have a playlist for each one of my writing projects. The one for Could Have Been is closing in on like 6 hours.
Okay.
And I know
and what
songs
kind of
very
music?
Well. There's a lot of Noah Kahn on there. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's fantastic. And he just can't, he is getting really popular now, but back when I first started writing this in 2020, he wasn't quite as popular. There's some like any song that's going to make you really feel something strongly. Like if you can ugly cry to a song while you're singing along to it, it's on there. Like those are the ones I need where I can invoke any sort of emotion that I need to feel for a certain scene. And those are the ones that I have on there. If I need something light and silly, I'll go to a totally different playlist. But as far as kind of whatever the feeling is that you're going for, make a playlist. And then it's like when you listen to the same lullabies as a kid and you fall asleep or you get sleepy the second you start hearing those. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing where if I put on my headphones and I start my playlist, I sort of go into that writing mode. And that works for me. I mean, other people don't like to write with music or like something else, but for me,
I have to have some kind of sound going on in the background.
I'll play coffee shop ambiance if I'm
writing and working. And my husband will come home and go, I have the TV. How can you focus when the TV is on? I'm like, when I don't have it on,
I can hear the electricity.
My brain starts going in 10 different directions, and it helps me 100% to focus.
No, I need all the noise and the chaos in order to
focus.
To shut out the noise and the chaos.
That makes no sense, but it's the way we are. All right. What's next for you, my dear? Anything else that you're working on?
Yeah. I've got a children's book I'm working on right now. I have 4 kids. My youngest is a 1st grader. My oldest is a 7th grader.
Awesome.
And they all have these smart light bulbs in their lamps in their room, and I can control it with an app. And so it's about a little girl who her dreams are sort of guided by the different colors of her light bulb on different nights. So I'm working on that. And then I have another novel about sort of some relationships that occur on one of those year-long cruise around the world. And so it's kind of a little ensemble about all the different kinds of characters that would take that sort of trip.
Interesting. That sounds really interesting. And seems like you like to focus on like romance.
Not as much romance. I think it's more relationships.
Okay.
So more of like the friendship factor of it. I actually had some really bad friend breakups as a teenager. And I've been able, they're harder than romantic breakups sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I really like the dynamic of trying to figure out why some friendships work and why some don't and what goes wrong. And sometimes that does lead to romantic relationships, but I don't think that that's what I try and focus on.
And let's talk a little bit about where folks can get Could Have Been, obviously at Stern Castle Publishing.
They can get it here at Stern Castle. And then they can also order it on Amazon as well as Barnes & Noble.
And what's the average cost?
I think it's between like 15 and 20, I think. Am I correct?
$16.99.
$16.99.
Yeah, between 15 and 20.
Yeah.
That works. All right. Anything else, Savanah, that you would like to add as we're wrapping up?
I don't think so. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's been a delight. Thank you so much. And encourage folks to pick up Savanah Gardiner's Could Have Been at your favorite local bookshop here at Stern Castle Publishing, located on Highway 101 in Newport at the south end of town. At the Driftwood Plaza at the south end of Newport, upstairs. Bright yellow, as you can see. It's a bright, wonderful, beautiful place, and a variety of books that you can come and choose from. So come and pick up her wonderful book, or if you want to just go to Amazon, as you said, you can do that too. Either way. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Coffee with Kiera. Again, we're sponsored by The Human Being in Newport at 6th Street and Highway 101, and in Lincoln City at the north end of the highway on the west side by TLC Credit Union. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'm Kiera Morgan.